If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Unspoken Issues.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unspoken Issues Podcast. This episode is going to go out fairly quick after we record it. At least that's the plan. And what better way to start out 2025 than taking a look at JLA Year 1? Mark Waid.
There's probably lots better ways to start off 2025. Most of them involving like drugs.
I won't argue. You're probably correct. You are correct. There's Dean Compton. Dean Compton, we're talking. We have returned. It's been a while, you know.
I got the old mental head shakes. I couldn't do this for a while.
No, that's all right. That's
the Dean came.
We had plenty of episodes in the can. If any of us wanted to take a small leave of absence, we could do it. So we are back, though, and we're putting some stuff right back into that empty can now.
Good.
So this is you went through on our hiatus, I guess. Nobody out there knows because last couple weeks ago was Big Bang. But you went through our hiatus, and updated what we were going to be covering this year.
Yeah,
I think JLA Year 1 was on the previous schedule anyway, so we just kind of moved some things up. But so with that being said, I mean,
it was in the same spot because it's big. So I was like, we'll come back from a break and. It's big. It's 12 issues, and at least the last issue is double sized. The first issue might be too. I can't remember.
I think it is. Yeah, it's decent size as well.
JLA Year 1 could be described as DC New Earth Year 1. This is the book we needed in 1987 at the end of the crisis to streamline how the DC universe would work, especially with the central component being the Justice League of America. We didn't get this book until much later. In hindsight, it really does streamline and take out a lot of the hiccups of early DC post-crisis continuity, while also telling an incredible story of how the Justice League became the greatest fighting force in the DC universe on the New Earth. You get to know a lot of characters, tons of different interactions, stuff that is retconned in. I really like how it brings the New Earth, the post-crisis DC Detective Comics, we say comics twice, DC Comics, brings that continuity into order in a way that I think, like I said, we really needed in 1987 when things, the DC continuity got very messy. This, it's spick and span, just cleans it all kind of up. Makes it all just kind of simple, and it's a really good story to boot. You're not going to go wrong with Mark Waid and the late Brian Augustyn and Barry Kitson, who I first fell in love with his work on Batman Punisher. It's the first time I remember seeing it. I know he had done Legion, like Legion 91 or something before that, but I remember him from the Batman Punisher. I was like, hell yes. Great talents who love the DC universe, love the history of it, the history of the DC universe, the minutia, the nitty-gritty. They pull it all in a format that you can pick up. They just did a re-release this year I was showing y'all earlier, and you're not going to be disappointed with this read, even though it is a big read.
Yeah, the issues flowed perfectly fine for me. I had no complaints, even in this double size. It's action-packed, especially when we get to that last issue. Darry, you got any thoughts on Mark Waid?
I love Mark Waid. I'm a huge Mark Waid fan. I would have said that for the longest period of time, my favorite comic book was Kingdom Come. And to this day, his run on Cap, still one of my favorite things of all time. I really can't think of anything by him I don't like. I had not read this, though. In 98, it passed me by. I really wasn't reading a lot of DC stuff back then. But I also love Barry Kitson, so this was a welcome surprise.
You mentioned the Cap run. I was just looking at Mike's Amazing World of Comics, see where this creative team was sitting at in 98. And, okay, so this first issue hits, I think, late 97. And Mark Waid, shortly, like right after the first issue drops, November 12th, 1997. He also drops November 19th, 1997, Heroes Return, Captain America #1.
Yeah, he does.
So he's got these two things that he is writing at the same time, two very well-known runs.
Well, he's also doing Flash, right? At this time, he might have still been doing Impulse.
He was doing some stuff over with Event Comics as well, and that's where I noticed that
Event Comics? What's Event?
Ash. It was just Caseta and Palmiotti's thing. They basically just did Ash, and I think they may have had one other book, but it was essentially, it's kind of like one of those things like the Shins is really just the lead singer, and he's replaced the other people a lot, and like Sunvolt is really just Jay Farrar. I think Event was really just Ash. It's really, you could have called it Ash Comics, It's one of those things where, like, it was just a vehicle for that character as opposed to an actual, like, line of comics they intended to put out.
The other one they had listed there was Painkiller Jane.
That's a spinoff, right? Isn't she from the Ash world? Or is that its own thing?
I see.
That's a huge...
She had a show, though. I remember watching
I've never read an Ash comic. Like, literally have never read them. I've looked at them. I've skimmed them. I tried to read the Ash Fact Files. The font is so 90s. It's too extreme for me at this age. I can't read it. It's all like little and big. But yeah, I love Fact Files. That's how you learn. I buy like a Who's Who or something. It's like I bought 40 comics instead of one, and I was poor. I didn't grow up rich like Darry did. Darry's down here. He doesn't need the X-Men Pizza Hut. He's got the fans. Oh, the pizza, mozzarella. He got the fancy stuff. I
can't go to Pizza Hut because they had the X-Men. I will say that.
That's what you say now.
Yeah.
Wolverine slice you open if you said otherwise.
This creative team, you're talking about Barry Kitson. I was looking at him as well. He first started in the mid 80s doing some Marvel UK stuff. And then just like you mentioned, he was on Legion, primarily DC man. Right before this, he's penciling Azrael. If you remember some of the issues of Azrael.
I wonder if it was that shitty Azrael costume, like Azrael Agent of the Bat. That's such a cool costume. Why would they have ever changed it to one?
I'm with Dean. I prefer the original costume.
All right. If you guys don't have anything else, we could get right into these first 4 issues. Well, here we go. JLA Year 1, issues 1 through 4. The Justice League's origin begins with disparate heroes drawn together against mysterious threats. And in our first issue, Green Lantern Hal Jordan's daredevil spirit contrasts with his burgeoning responsibility as a hero, while Martian Manhunter investigates a criminal operation, foreshadowing his role as a vital part of the team. A covert organization, Locust, orchestrates chaos at a military base, forcing the heroes Hal, Martian Manhunter, Flash, Aquaman, and Black Canary to unite. Despite initial struggles with teamwork and clashing personalities, the League foils Locust's plans and considers forming a more permanent alliance to face the threats ahead, which is kind of funny because that first paragraph is pretty much how the end of this series is going to be. There's
going to be a recurring theme of you can never know someone enough and you can never work with them enough here. So you're right. The end of issue 1 is very much similar to the end of issue 12, and that's not an accident.
Mm-hmm. Issue 2 reveals a larger conspiracy as Vandal Savage allies with Locust to crush the Justice League before they can thrive. At a press conference, the League navigates public scrutiny, but the event is derailed by an attack from Savage's villains, Solomon Grundy, Thorn, Clayface, and Eclipso. Did I get that right? I hope I got that right.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay. The team's inexperience...
You forgot about Eclipso? The darkness within, bro. Darkness within.
The team's inexperience is evident, but they gradually coordinate to protect civilians and repel the villains. Despite criticism from the press, the League resolves to improve. The surprise offer of support from Green Arrow and Ted Kord Industries hints at a stronger future for the team. In issue 3, the League continues to grapple with internal conflicts and growing threats. Locust experiments with alien DNA, underscoring their sinister plans. A skirmish against heavily armed criminals showcases the team's potential, but also highlights their lingering friction, particularly as Black Canary challenges her teammates' protective instincts. As bonds deepen through shared stories of origins and struggles, the League debates inviting Superman to join them. Now, as we get into issue 4, takes a more personal approach, exploring the heroes' struggles to balance their dual lives. Snapper Carr, I have to snap
I
a
can't
couple
snap
times.
my fingers.
I can't do it audibly, but I can try. Snap, snap. Snapper Carr's technological tinkering creates levity amid the league's operational challenges while individual members face their own conflicts. Hal Jordan's strained relationships at Ferris Aircraft, Aquaman's alienation among surface dwellers, Barry Allen's tension between heroism and love, and Black Canary's reflection on her Justice Society roots. The Brotherhood of Evil's allegiance with Locus is revealed, setting the stage for escalating confrontations. That is issues 1 through 4. We'll start with you, Darry. What are your thoughts? You got some notes there for our first 4 issues.
I got a lot of notes on these first 4 issues. I got a lot of thoughts on this book. I'm a huge Mark Waid fan, but I have a consistent problem with Mark Waid, which is every once in a while he gets a hold of a property, and I think to myself, I wouldn't want to do that if I ever got a hold of a property I really loved. There's a lot of stuff in here that reads like I'm a fan of the character and I want to fix something about the story. I want to make it line up. And a lot of that is like, those are inside thoughts. Those don't need to be on the page. But Waid is able to hide that. Later on, there's a lot of mention of the Sea Devils in this comic book. Why? It's 1998. No one needs this same type of thing. So I don't know if this was recorded.
Because it's DC Universe year 1.
Dean mentioned before that this is really an origin story for the entire DC Universe post-crisis, right?
In many ways.
The same type of story was done by Darwin Cook in New Frontier.
I was going to mention that at some point, that there's a lot of similarities between these two. 7 years earlier.
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't remember what year.
New Frontier sounds like 2006-ish to me. 2005.
I think I was in college when that came out, so that sounds about right.
When I was reading this, I was like, wow, this is a lot like New Frontier. The Center and Locus.
A lot of overlap. And Apalex. We cannot forget about Gardner Fox's greatest creation, the planet of Apalex.
Really?
I would go with, Hawkman, perhaps. But
the Gardner Fox's greatest creation of all time is the Justice Society of America. The man codified the idea of a superhero team and 10, 15 years later brought it back in the Justice League.
I think his greatest creation, I was thinking collaboration, and like I love the Golden Age Hawkman stuff.
Oh, all right.
That's
Sure.
stuff he did. But you're right. The Justice, actually, his greatest creation is probably Parallel Earths.
Oh, fair. Yeah.
I mean,
that's interesting. In my head, I always credit that to Julie Schwartz. But
who knows who did what at that point? Because
okay, all right. I'm just saying.
He probably deserves at least co-credit
because Schwartz was like a big nerd. So I just kind of credit. Fox was more like he was a real writer. Like he wrote whatever. None of this matters.
I mean, it's fun to talk about.
This comic is a retelling of the early days of the Silver Age, and it is an infinitely deep well. Like we could start talking about any character, and this is Mark Waid. This guy wrote Kingdom Come because he can tell you the date on the penny in the Batcave. He can tell you Clark Kent's address. The three of us combined don't have as much knowledge as Mark Waid. And the guy still is writing. He's right now, as we record this, writing the Justice League comic that is in continuity in 2025. Nothing has changed in the ensuing almost 30 years of this. So I'm not saying we couldn't talk about this for the rest of our lives. We absolutely could. This is an interesting time capsule because, to Dean's point, this could only have existed at the time period it came out. Case in point, for the 3 people listening to this that don't know, the reason Black Canary is in this comic book is because at the time, editorially, everyone decided Wonder Woman had either not yet been introduced or had not been introduced at the time that the Justice League was founded in the new timeline. Famously, if you picture the first cover featuring the Justice League fighting Starro, who has 5 arms, it's Hal Jordan, Barry Allen, John Jones, Aquaman, and Wonder Woman, not the Black Canary. And I guess they figured, well, one woman superhero is as good as the other. They swapped her in. I actually think it's a great change. I find Black Canary to be much more interesting than Wonder Woman. So I thought that was a great change. But the number one thing I liked about Justice League year 1 through and through is I feel like the character that got the most development is Martian Manhunter, who is one of my favorite DC characters. And I feel like he very rarely gets enough love. And he gets a full arc over these 12 issues. So I was very excited. And as far as the first 4 issues go, I think that it's a great setup. I was very confused by the naming of year one, though, because this thing does not cover a year. This thing covers like a decade of continuity. So I was very confused by the name.
I think that decade all happens in 1 year in their time.
Right. Hey.
You're right. Like, I guess it would have been around 86 to 98.
No. Sorry. They actually say decade. Locus at one point, maybe it's not in the first 4 issues, but that's what made me think of it. Locus actually says something along the lines of, this is a plan 10 years in the makings. They reference other Justice League stories that happened during the Silver Age. So I just assumed that this was not going up to the present day, but going up further along. Maybe I misread it.
I thought they were saying that the whole come to Earth and fight thing was 10 years in the making, but maybe I misread it.
Oh, maybe you're right. You know what? I'm going to find Mark Waid's phone number. I'm going to text him and ask him.
That's a good idea.
Call him up.
He's not doing anything more important.
I'm going to call him up and ask him.
But what do you have against the Sea Devil?
I don't have a damn thing against the Sea Devils.
It's hate just the Sea Devils for some reason.
It's this idea that you get in your head where you have to explain everything that you as a fan know was canon at the time the story is supposedly set. So, like, I'm picturing myself, like, there's a reason I didn't pick this up in 1998. And it's because I knew I wouldn't know what was going on. Jim Shooter famously said every comic could potentially be someone's first. Imagine picking up Justice League year one and thinking, well, I really liked Batman year one. I didn't have to know anything about that book. I got a great story, the origin of Batman, a character I like who's in everything else. You pick up Justice League year one, you're going to be more confused at the end than you are at the beginning. You're not going to have an understanding of their origin or anything else. You're going to be like, again, who the hell are the Sea Devils? Why are they important? Or Dan Garrett Blue Beetle. Dan Garrett Blue Beetle is in this thing more than Superman is in this thing. And I was so surprised because it's like, you go through 12 issues and you count that there are more panels featuring Dan Garrett than there are in the Man of Steel. I'm willing to take that bet.
All right. I'm not going to do that.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great story about why this concept of the world's greatest superheroes works. Because it's not just about the most popular or the most powerful. It's about something intrinsic where people are looking for a sense of belonging. And when they find it and have a cause, they can accomplish anything. I thought this was a really good story about that. And again, Jean comes off looking great. So I support it just for that, if nothing else.
Except for that one part.
No, but I thought that was really good because, again, It
does not make him look good. It makes listen. It makes him look alien, which is good. But spying on your buddies.
I was wondering what you was talking about there.
But again, I'm not worried about him looking good. I'm worried about him having a real arc. Because most of the time when Jean is in one of these stories, he doesn't have anything to do. Because most people are like, well, he had a life as a cop on Mars. He had a wife and daughter, but it all happened a long time ago. He's been here for a while. He's stalwart. He's our mental guy. It's like, no, he's alien. And he's trying his best to connect with us, but he does it in a way that violates our most central tenets, and other truly malicious aliens are able to use that against us. I thought that was great. I thought like that felt very good for the character, because once he realizes what he's done and he's like, oh, wait a second, I misunderstood you lower life forms who don't have psychic abilities. And then he comes back around. It's like you understand why this guy has basically been on every single Justice League incarnation going back to the first issues.
I misunderstood how you're using the word good.
Oh.
But developed the character very well. It makes him look alien, which is good.
Yeah.
Because, like, in the JLA, when, like, Batman joins, like, the Bwahaha early days, Batman's the one who's like, there's only one guy here who looks at humanity as a whole, so he's got to be the leader. It's Martian Manhunter. It shows it because he treated them all fairly similarly.
Yeah.
Also, Mark Waid loves this trope because he does it again for Tower of Babel when he takes over after Grant Morrison and JLA. It's like the same story, except it's Batman's files. And everybody's mad at Batman. I'd be mad at Batman too, just like they were mad at Martian Manhunter, but I feel like Martian Manhunter gets more of a pass. Maybe because he's an alien and because Batman's an asshole.
No, I agree, but I also think there's a very important distinction between the two characters. Because if you remember, they were both introduced in Detective Comics. Jean was a cop. He was a noir character before he was a superhero. I think the fundamental difference is when Jean is confronted with it and he's told by his coworkers and his friends, like, this was not cool. He's like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I didn't know. When Batman's confronted, he's like, no, forget all of you. What if you get mind controlled and I have to murder you in front of your children?
Yeah, I think part of it is because Martian Manhunter is an alien and Batman is an asshole.
Yeah.
That's like...
Yes.
So yeah, he gets a bit of a pass. One of them was like, I don't know, I was trying to figure out if this would make me safe. Personally, I was scared.
But he also says...
Batman's like, I'm doing this because I know better than all of you as far as what's good for everything. And if you question this, you're a pissant. And why would I even talk to you? So yeah, absolutely. I understand the difference. It's just funny that it's the exact same thing. And one of them's like, oh, well, that was bad, buddy. But of course, context is king. You put that context on it, and it changes everything around. And of course, this is also the basis for Justice League Doom. Is that it? The animated piece?
Yeah, the animated movie, yeah. It's funny, too, because Jean goes out of his way of saying, well, I could have read your mind, but I didn't. And you didn't even know. His whole thing is like, on the world he came from, everyone was a psychic. So the idea
you just read that's how you talked.
There's an infinite level of compassion in ancient Martian culture that humans can't even imagine. The idea of reading someone's mind, he quickly realizes, is the ultimate taboo. But he's also trained as one of the system's greatest detectives. So he goes out of his way to discover all of this stuff the old-fashioned way. And it isn't until he confronts his people with it that he realizes, like, no, this was just as bad. The taboo you broke wasn't reading someone's mind. It was violating their trust. Right. I love that, because as soon as he realizes that, you see the immediate remorse, and you see him putting himself on his line to save not only his coworkers, for lack of a better term, but the entire world. John is someone who lost a family, who lost the world, who's dedicated himself 100% to protecting his adopted world. Unlike Clark, he wasn't raised here. He's constantly an outsider, and he's constantly remembering the sound of his voice in child. So I thought it was a great character work. And again, we're crediting Waid. It could have been the other guy.
Ryan Augustyn. Here's the thing, though, man. Like, he kept all those files on all those guys, and you love him, and you think he's fantastic, right? Right? That's true.
That's true. All true.
Okay.
True.
All true so far. He had a file on the Sea Devils, bro. The Sea Devils are worth your fucking time. If they're worth John Jones's time, they're worth your time. Argue. I dare you to argue with the Martian. You're not arguing with me now. Dean Compton's not the one laying this justice down. It's Martian Manhunter.
So it is established. It's established
that the Sea Devils are worth your time. You're right.
It is well established in the DCU that every alternate reality is fiction to another alternate reality.
It's true.
Which means that since they've had the internet, there's no reason to think there aren't wikis on all the alternate realities. I believe that Jean Jones, as a guy who does not need sleep and who is obsessed with knowledge and education and detective work, goes in and updates these based on what he's learned about everyone else, including the Sea Devils.
The Sea Devils.
Especially the Sea Devils. Yeah.
I think, as far as your Sea Devils thing, that adds something to it. If we're going to build a new Earth where there was a Justice Society and then they go away, and if it takes a while for Superman and the JLA to show up, why not use those guys like the Sea Devils, the Challengers of the Unknown, Cave Carson, the firefighter guys, a couple of their other adventure things, maybe even the Viking Commando here and there, and be like, hey, these were guys that people liked for a while. People here were like, falling over themselves for Frankie Valli, and then the Beatles showed up and things changed. But there's a period between Chuck Berry and the Beatles, and it's important to note for rock and roll music history, what exactly happened during that period when rock and roll was somewhat scandalous, seen as a little dangerous here, and you're like, oh, we can't deal with those things. Well, these were kind of milquetoast heroes that, like, the Challenge of the Unknown, I don't want to call them milquetoast because that sounds bad, but they were more like us. They were a little different. It's like, Rocky could have been a quarterback, and I think it's important to fill that gap because of the culture that you would see between the Justice Society and the rise of these new heroes, and also what would become of them. The Blackhawks is a cool thing to explore. With the musical analogy that Light gave, I think is the best one I can give.
I agree 100% with what you just said.
Except you hate the Sea Devils.
It's not that I hate them. It's that I don't know anything about them. And certainly when I was 13 years...
anything out from that.
I agree with you. If the point of referencing the Sea Devils and Cave Carson and the Challengers of the Unknown, who I actually do like because they're Kirby characters,
of course.
is the point.
I mean, they're the Fantastic Four without powers. Let's be honest.
Well, no, they're the Fantastic Four without drama. You can give them superpowers. The whole point is
just temporarily, but yes, I get what you're saying. You're right.
They're four uninteresting human beings. It's not until Jack or Stan or whomever is like, wait a second, they got to fight. They got to have.
Well, what makes them interesting, and we're off the topic now, is they're monsters of the week characters.
Yeah.
It's like whoever they fought would carry the day, and I think early Challengers, the Kirby stuff, does a great job of that. Then when somebody else picks up, they can't bring in every week. It was more like you had a month. It's like a Kolchak or Friday the 13th. These are the guys who are going to be on it, and the monster's going to be the thing you're interested the most in.
Well, I only have my first question, Dean, is: have you seen the bulb wrench anywhere?
Yeah, I keep one everywhere I go. I got that clown blood, right? Y'all know it. Like, I'm always messing with people and stuff. But if you can't laugh at them, it's supposed to be everybody in on it. Green Lantern should have been. What happens is he's like, oh, we need a bulb wrench to Aquaman who's too strong to change a light bulb. There's no bulb wrench, You got to let him in on it immediately.
Right.
You got to be like, oh, you need a bulb wrench. Oh, really? Well, yeah, bulb wrench. Oh, yeah, we use them all the time. Really? No, we don't have a bulb wrench. You're just going to have to be careful, you dumb son of a bitch.
Can we all agree that Hal Jordan is a dick? Can we agree with that? Like, I hate Hal Jordan.
Here's the thing. I don't think he always is one. Remember later on when he gets the Mr. Fantastic gray streak in his hair and he's all flying around? I think he eventually grows out of it and he's an elder statesman. He's like, I used to be a dick. It's like, you don't know what it's like to be a dick. It's like, no, I absolutely do, you shit bag. But Hal Jordan's not a good leader at this point. He's fooling himself into thinking that he knows what he's doing because no one in his position could actually know what they're doing. He was given a magic space ring by an alien who didn't even really want to give it to him. It just sort of happened the way it did. So he is his fearlessness is masking his befuddlement at what he should actually do next, how this is going to work.
Right. Right. I mean, we get to see our team come together at the beginning. They're trying to keep each other's identity secret from each other, but they're also trying to do the hero thing and the team thing. And I think that's where a lot of this book got me, was like, okay, we're kind of exploring the personal relationships between these team members and, of course, their personal lives as well, and some of the stuff that they're running into, trying to keep their identity secret. Dean, did you have any thoughts on our villains in these first 4 issues? I mean, we got Locust, which is going to be over the next 11 issues are going to be the main villains, I think. And then we
necessarily generic.
Right. And then
I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're an overall conspiracy, so whatever they need to do at any given time, they can do. I think some of their stuff gets shaky at different times. I'm like, really? This is what you're doing? Mm-hmm. But it's fine. I like Locust. It's fine.
Solomon Grundy, Thorn, Clayface, and Eclipso brought together to.
I love Eclipso.
All right.
I absolutely love Eclipso. Big Solomon Grundy guy. They make sense. These are guys. A lot of it is like Darry said, and some of it we're just getting like snip, snap panels. But he's putting a lot of Silver Age stories into the New Earth era, and so those were all very prominent villains. I mean, Eclipso had his own book in the 60s in House of Secrets. So, like, these are guys that were around doing things around this time. Solomon Grundy's always great to see, just punching stuff, no big deal. But I especially love Eclipso. I have an Eclipso figure right over there. He's got the black. There's no problem with any of these villains. Vandal Savage, I guess, is the next one.
Right.
I like Vandal Savage fine, but it's important to note that Vandal Savage's real power is the ability to wait.
Yes, it is.
Wait a second. So I'm glad you brought up Vandal Savage, because there's something I wanted to point out here. He mentions in this comic, nowhere else is this ever mentioned, that he was responsible for the breakup of the Justice Society by having control over a variety of senators. Did you guys catch this? This is like a crazy retcon. Then as soon as I read it, I was like, I want that story. I want to know that an ageless caveman super genius fought the first super team and was like, this isn't going to work. I'm going to have to wait you guys out.
Yeah.
And got a bunch of senators. But that's not in the original Paul Levitt story. It's just Congress.
Yeah, I mean, they should definitely redone this. But you have to believe that for Vandal Savage, it's not the first time he just waited. Like, can you imagine you beat Vandal Savage and then you're 83 and somebody knocks at the door and it's Vandal Savage looking 27 still. And he's like, hey, remember when you kicked my ass? Well, you're 83 now. I'm going to kill you tonight. There's not really anything you can do about it. You're like, oh, I just waited. Because
I thought it was great. Because usually he's usually shown as an aggressive guy who doesn't really accomplish all that much, because it's like, yeah, he's ageless, but he's also like a caveman. Like, I got to punch you harder than the next guy. I love the idea that he's just like, you guys only live to be about 100. I'm going to wait this out. And I love the idea of him like funding Joe McCarthy's campaign or whatever he needed to do. And then once everyone was in the room, he just walks in. He's just like, get rid of them. They're commies. Get rid of them. And then everyone else is like, yeah, this is going to shore up re-election. Then he goes back to like, I don't know, his fortress.
Dinosaur Island.
Yeah, he goes back to Dinosaur Island. He just waits. And then he gets a copy of the Daily Planet. Society broke up because they asked them to unveil themselves. And he's like, I win again. He just waits out everyone. He's going to be here until the heat death of the universe. So.
Well, also, he could be lying.
Oh, absolutely.
He could be lying 100%. That he didn't have any to do anything with it, or it could be both. He could have had these senators in place, but this happened whether he had these senators in place or not. It was going to happen. That's one of the best things about Vandal Savage, too. Immortal characters, when they lie, you have to really, really, if Vandal Savage told you, like, oh, yeah, I was there when they carved the Blarney Stone. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't.
You ain't going to know.
But there's a chance. He existed in the time period. There's a chance. So he could be lying about it. I don't think he is. He's like the old Bob Dylan song, you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. When he saw that because this is a guy who worked with Hitler. This is a guy who worked with the Kaiser in World War I. Two things. Number one, he was like, I got to be on the winning team this time. And number two, he's like, I've seen hysteria. I can take advantage of it this time. I can get on the right side of it. I think that's a big deal that he did to help take down the JSA.
Yeah.
I love Vandal Savage. Who else is the villains? That's it, right?
At the end of issue 4, we're going to get into him here with issue 5, the Brotherhood of Evil.
Well, yeah, they're coming about you. Listen, let me tell you. I love the Doom Patrol, so I love the Brotherhood of Evil. They don't make any sense, and if they did, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
Their appearance in the end, I was able to get a very similar feeling when I turned the pages. It's like the Brotherhood, and you're like, Monsieur Mallah, Madame Rouge, the Brain, and I forget his real name, but that's Mr. Nobody.
Oh, Mr. Nobody. Yeah.
Eric Morden.
That's it, Morden. I kept wanting to say Moloch, but I'm like, that's the guy from Watchmen, asshole.
Yeah.
The only other note I had here was that I did appreciate the issue 4 itself is called While You Were Out, and it's just a day in the life for each one of these guys as they're kind of going about their secret identities. Or, Aquaman, I think Aquaman, watching him try to deal with humanity on the surface dwellers, I guess I should say, some of the tough stuff that he was running into was entertaining, but you can't help but feel for him too, because he doesn't understand some of the stuff that's going on. So I really appreciated what Mark Waid the writers were bringing to this, as far as, these are superheroes, but they also have personal lives. Dean, did you have any other notes on these 4 issues?
They're gorgeous.
Like the art.
No, like it's really great storytelling. There's a lot to put in here. This guy draws everything from the army surrounding a giant alien to those blips and flashes of things that are supposed to represent someone's inner turmoil or a bunch of time passing. I think the art really did the story well.
JLA Year 1, issues 5 through 8. In the 5th issue, the story begins in Manchester, Alabama, where the townsfolk discuss the Justice League's heroics with a mix of admiration and skepticism, unaware that the Brotherhood of Evil is preparing a grotesque experiment. Chaos erupts as Mala and the Brain unleash monstrous protoplasmic creatures crafted from stolen human parts, prompting the League, Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Black Canary, and Martian Manhunter to respond. However, the team's lack of cohesion and Green Lantern's reluctance to accept help hinder their efforts, exposing cracks in their unity. Meanwhile, Barry Allen struggles to balance his civilian life as the Flash, facing mounting suspicions at work and growing tension in his relationship with Iris West. The League's challenges deepen during a sudden flood in California, where Aquaman finds unexpected camaraderie with Green Arrow. Back at headquarters, internal conflicts escalate, with Green Lantern clashing with teammates and Black Canary's probing questions, revealing John Jones's tragic past. The Doom Patrol joins the fight against the Brotherhood's twisted creations, contrasting the League's public struggles with their own grim anonymity. Despite their combined efforts to neutralize the creatures, the Brotherhood escapes, leaving the League sobered by their inexperience. The issue ends ominously as the Brotherhood unveils a horrifying hybrid creation built from stolen Justice League DNA.
Not like Green Lantern's arm and Flash's leg and Black Canary's mouth.
This is horrifying. All right.
David Cronenberg, baby.
It really is. When I was reading this, I wasn't expecting that. The Justice League and Doom Patrol in issue 6 regroup at Doom Patrol headquarters, recovering from their injuries sustained during the Brotherhood of Evil's attack. With improvised repairs by the Chief, including a mechanical arm for Green Lantern and an artificial voice box for Black Canary, the heroes find themselves physically functional but emotionally strained. Meanwhile, Mala and the Brain fortify their Manchester, Alabama stronghold using Green Lantern's stolen power ring to enhance their defenses. Despite warnings from Madame Rouge and Morden, the Brain's experiments escalate as he grows confident in his newfound power. United by necessity, the Justice League and Doom Patrol launch a joint assault on the fortress, aiming to recover the stolen gene graft device and reverse the damage inflicted on the townspeople. The mission highlights the heroes' strained dynamics. Aquaman's stoicism clashes with Robot Man's brashness, while Black Canary and Martian Manhunter rally the team against formidable foes like Mala and Madame Rouge. Inside the fortress, a climactic battle ensues as the combined teams face Robot Raj, piloted by Morden, and the Brain. With Flash's speed and Aquaman's cunning, the Brain is ultimately neutralized and the gene graft device is reclaimed. The issue concludes with the League and Doom Patrol reflecting on their hard-won victory.
Justice League of Doom Patrol, hell yeah.
On their hard-won victory and bracing for the larger threat posed by Locust, strengthening their resolve for the battles ahead. In issue 7, the Justice League navigates internal and external challenges at high society gathering in Gotham. The team confronts their financier, Simon Carr, or at least the man who represents the financier, over the secrecy surrounding their benefactor. While Carr assures them of altruistic intentions, his refusal to disclose the identity of their sponsor causes unease, highlighting the team's growing need for transparency. Meanwhile, the shadowy organization Locust advances its sinister agenda, perfecting android and genetic technologies with Alien to create host bodies for an impending apocalyptic event. Clark Kent observes the League's activities and, suspecting their headquarters location, transforms into Superman. He witnesses them battling Zotar, a futuristic weapons master.
Weapons master.
Yes, indeed. Zotar's illusion casting technology.
You know that's an ongoing Justice League villain, right?
Is he really?
Yeah, I was picking that up, yeah. Yeah, he's like from the old school period of the Justice League era. He's similar to Kang, except he's kind of poor man's Kang.
Okay, all right. Well,
I think that he would be better than Zarko the Tomorrow Man, but Zarko the Tomorrow Man has like a bathtub coffin, and that's just silly enough to get over with me, so he's just a little below Zarko. I like him. I like the idea of somebody from the future. It's like, oh, I've got super guns. But like he never... But if memory serves, like Kang has grandiose plans, and Weapons Master just seems like, I'm here. Let's party. Like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you gonna do with this old money?
All right.
Listen, come back. Here's what he's going to do. He's going to come back now, rob a bank, get the old money, then go way back in time, buy an Action Comics for, $20. Action Comics number 1. That'll fund his weapons.
That happened in a Back to the Future comic and from IDW. No, I'm not kidding either. I'm not kidding you. All right. So Zotar, futuristic weapons master. Zotar's illusion casting technology disorients the League, forcing them to confront their fears and his creations. Superman's timely intervention dispels the illusions, allowing the League to regain the upper hand. Together, they defeat Zotar and dismantle his advanced weaponry. Back at the base, Flash nervously nominates Superman for League membership, but Superman declines, emphasizing his independent path and leaving the team to reflect on their growing synergy and dynamics. In issue 8, the tension within the Justice League reaches a boiling point as external threats and internal distrust collide. Locust advances its sinister plans, announcing a new phase that leverages hosts' bodies engineered from the DNA of the Justice League's previous Appalachian foes. Their ultimate goal, a planetary takeover, becomes more evident as their operatives move undetected. Meanwhile, the League struggles to cope with Superman's refusal to join their ranks. Green Lantern's frustration boils over, leading to clashes with his teammates, while while Martian Manhunter grows increasingly withdrawn, burdened by secretive investigations. Amid the discord, the team continues to search for the missing Appalachian meteors.
Secretive investigations, i.e. spying.
Spying.
Nobody's commissioned him, but it's like, oh man, go find out about the metal men. That's not what happened. He's just doing it. He's spying. He doesn't know no better. We established that earlier. He doesn't know no better.
So they're searching for these Appalachian meteors, or aliens. Each of these aliens came down in meteors, right? That's how it originally happened. Okay. So anyway, they've realized that there's these missing meteors, and I think they decided at some point that they can account for every one of them except for one.
Well, there were 7. He took out 6 and Superman took out 1, but apparently there was an 8 that they didn't know about.
If you're going to change so much about this story, if you're going to swap in Black Canary, if you're going to do everything else, why not go all the way? Why? You've already changed so much about the original story. Why not make a real compelling new villain that doesn't require someone to stand up and go, what the hell is Appalax? This story was 30 years old at the time. I was just so confused when I was reading this. No, more, right? 40 years old at the time.
We're talking these.
Something like that.
56
but it had been updated. Like they had done a Secret Origins Justice League.
Okay.
That have updated it somewhat. That if you read just that story, a lot of this makes a little more sense. But at the same time, that was in Secret Origins, so who knows who had gotten it and who hadn't.
Right.
The Justice League, when do they first appear? It's 58, right?
56 or 58. That sounds about right.
Mark Waid's not here. He'd be disappointed. He'd be like, it came out this day. I bought it at Miller's Market.
Yeah, exactly.
I also got an all-sea cola. which I understand. I have similar memories of things. I can remember exactly what I ate when I was reading a certain comic or watching wrestling or something. But I guess they didn't change it probably because they had established it in the New Earth about these Appalachians.
No, you're right.
Right. So for you to go all the way, would you like get rid of that and just do it all, just wipe it all and do it all new?
I always think of the way the Ultimate Continuity would do this in the early 2000s. Keep the spirit of the book and keep as many characters as you can, but redefine like the fundamental, the thrust of it. You want to take what was good about this story in the 50s, the 60s, and introduce it to an audience in the late 90s and the early 2000s. What worked then that allowed this to get to a couple hundred issues that we can say now at this time? I'm not saying reinvent it because I don't like it or it doesn't age well. I'm saying what would work then. And I feel like with this, changes were mandated by editorial, right? Swap out Wonder Woman, update the timeline, explain all these other characters that couldn't possibly have been in publication with them because we didn't own those companies yet back in the 50s. But like the rest of the details, any detail that could be kept from the very first origin story, not even the first issue, it's the origin story of the Justice League, is kept. And it's just like, well, why not go a little further and make one of the Appalachians a really compelling, the Thanos of the story, the Loki of the story, to borrow something from Avengers #1. I'm not saying throw everything out because I don't like it. Take this as an opportunity to define the conflict for a new generation. I was 13 when this came out. I skipped this, and I think that if I had read this, I'd have been like, you're referencing a story I've never read and probably aren't going to. So I don't want to stick with this. We had just read Justice League #1, where Morrison did something similar, where he's like, the Big Seven are fighting a brand new group of villains, but at the end they turn out to be Martians. That was my introduction to Justice League, and I'm still a fan of them 30 years later.
So, personal struggles plagued Jordan and Barry Allen. Hal's civilian work as a test pilot suffers as his responsibilities as Green Lantern grow, straining relationships with coworkers. Barry's relationship with Iris West faces its own challenges as his double life as the Flash causes mounting tension. The balance between heroism and humanity becomes an increasingly difficult tightrope for the team. And that's why I think Mark does a great job in this book. I said it earlier. These personal relationships strained by being a superhero, we see it all the time. But I think in year one and as part of this series, it was done well. The plot takes a dramatic turn when it is thought that a Locust agent has infiltrated the League's headquarters. However, what the team finds out is that it's actually Martian Manhunter who has been keeping secret files on his teammates. A heated argument about trust erupts.
What a shitbag. Hear that? Did you get it?
This leaves John on the defense. He's all right. This leaves John on the defensive as his actions shake the team's unity. The issue concludes with the Locust operative murdering one of their own to preserve secrecy. There was a small through plot that didn't make it in the synopsis for the issue, but I thought it was entertaining nonetheless, where there was a guy going through the motions of his day, understanding that what he's doing with Locust is going to end up in basically the world coming to an end.
Engineering an apocalypse so that their mutated bodies can survive.
Yeah.
Right. So
anybody who ain't got one of those is going to be gone. I'm going to live, but y'all two are in trouble.
It's true. It's kind of...
I'm going to see them.
He ends up, as we watch him go throughout his day, we see some pretty terrifying stuff as he's talking to his brother for the last time. He's talking to his girlfriend or his wife at a dinner. And when he looks over at her, she's on fire. And so he finally makes a decision at the end of this issue to go and tell the Justice League, but he ends up running into, well, do we know at this time, can we tell it's Simon Carr who kills him, or is it the Locust leader that kills him? I can't remember. Which one? Is it Simon Carr?
It's like he's possessed by the Locust leader at the time, the guy, so he shoots him.
Okay, so it is Simon Carr that shows up with the gun. Gotcha. By the end of this issue, the team's obviously worried about Martian Manhunter. They try to capture him or at least stop him from leaving. He ends up escaping, and that's kind of where we leave the end of issue 8. So now I'm done. Those 4 issues have been synopsisized.
My favorite part of the book is definitely when the Doom Patrol shows up, because I'm such a Doom Patrol mark. And you'll notice the Flash talks like he knows them, which is a wink, nudge, nudge to the fact that they teamed in The Brave and the Bold. He was one of the only superheroes that actually teamed with the Doom Patrol during the Silver Age proper. The Doom Patrol makes things weird in a good way. And we lose sight of how weird all this superhero shit probably would be. You get some body horror. You get to see the brain get cut off with Aquaman's willpower and a cutlass. I love the Doom Patrol teaching the Justice League that, hey, you might be a little big for your britches, and also, don't judge people, especially you, Hal Jordan. The first stringers are here. Shut up. That's the thing about the Doom Patrol. They deal with things that the quote-unquote regular superheroes couldn't deal with. The Justice League's super great when they're fighting this weapons master guy. But if it's the painting that ain't Paris, they don't know what to do.
100% true.
If a jukebox comes to life and started everybody doing the Mamba, you don't call the Justice Society, right? The Teen Titans don't fight Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. There are weird things on the edges that aren't quite horror, but aren't quite science. And that's where the Doom Patrol is. They're the David Cronenberg, superheroes. They're fucked up and they fight things that are fucked up. It was cool to see that get over here and for the Justice League to realize this world is a lot bigger than just them, and that while they are apparently the preeminent fighting team overall, you may be the best overall hitter, but somebody's got your number. Recently, Brian Matsu's a pitcher for the Orioles, he passed away, R.I.P. One of the things that was crazy about him is he owned David Ortiz. David Ortiz, the Hall of Famer, first ballot, everybody knows who he is. Who's Brian Matsu? Doesn't matter. He owned him. The guy went, he only got 3 hits and 20 at-bats against him.
So are the Royals the Doom Patrol in this analogy? Is that how this works?
Brian Matsuts is the Doom Patrol.
Okay.
The Royals are the Royals. The Royals are obviously the Inhumans, okay?
Oh, yeah, of course. So okay. Hey, I apologize.
Don't be silly. Obviously, George Brett is Black Bolt.
Yeah.
Is Bo Jackson on the team?
Oh, yeah, without doubt.
Absolutely. Bo Jackson, Bo Jackson's probably his own Inhuman that we just haven't seen yet because he's so great. He's the greatest athlete I've ever seen to this day. Never seen anything like it. So next, when they team up with Superman, which was always fun, let me ask you all this. And it doesn't have anything to do with the Sea Devil. Now it does. But it didn't before then. When they redid the Crisis and they decided to streamline, or when they did the Crisis and they were redoing the DC Universe and they decided to streamline everything, do y'all think it was a mistake, especially with what they've tried to do since the end of Infinite Crisis, to realign this, to take Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman out of it? Because since approximately 2, they've tried to make it where they're the linchpin, the center of the Justice League, the center of the DC Universe, in a way that Marvel always sort of did with Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four. Even when the X-Men became preeminent, they remained somewhat core tenets of the universe. Did DC make a mistake deciding to take those 3 away? They're not going to have been part of the Justice League or the Justice Society, for that matter. Do you think it hurt the Justice League to not have them be a part of it from the start?
I honestly do not think so. I think that you can tell a competent story without them being there. If we're talking like sales figures and stuff like that, I bet there's probably
sure. No, I'm only talking creatively. Sales figures. Justice League was a bona fide success. You can't argue with those results. But as it went on, they did bring Superman in, the Doomsday Era, the last days of Justice League America, Justice League Europe, until we get to Grant Morrison's JLA, which really since that time, but especially since 2006, because they retconned it later. Like if you read Justice League of America, I think it's number 0 from 2005 or 6. Like it's the three of them looking over every era of Justice League. Like, oh, we may not be a part of it, but here we are in the background. Bullshit, you know. But they really tried it since at least 2006 and arguably 97 to make those three the cornerstones. Darry, do you have thoughts about this? I mean, I don't think it hurt in the short term, but I think in the long term it hurt both the Justice League and the DC universe.
I think it hurt a lot. When you tell people who want to tell a story that they can't do a thing, sometimes that can result in a more creative endeavor where they have to work around the restriction. But I think in this case, it's the Justice League. It's the 7 characters. They define the Justice League. If they have a good story that involves Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman, just let them tell it. I think a lot of the moves that were made post-crisis were very short-term, and they were made by people with not a lot of imagination. You're like, okay, these are the 3 biggest fictional characters we own. They're 3 of the biggest fictional characters of all time. You can't put them in the premiere book. It's like, why? So Wonder Woman,
especially when you consider that those 3 had been on a Justice League cartoon pretty much nonstop from 72 to 86. Everybody in the mainstream, you know, if you were 5 in 72, you know, what did that make you in 86? Like 15, 14, sure. Like around there? Yeah. I mean, so like, you know, I mean, you already had a whole lot of mains. You had grown up like these 3 people. They were in the Justice League. It was Cornerstone, Super Friends, and you just kind of cut that off to spite your face.
Has there been a reason given as to why they did it?
Several.
Yeah, because they wanted them to be Marvel characters, so they all got introduced like day 1, right? John Byrne's Man of Steel, Frank Miller's and Mazzucchelli's Year 1, whatever George Perez was doing with Wonder Woman. I don't know.
I love George Perez's Wonder Woman.
I love George Perez. I've never read his run on Wonder Woman, so.
I'm getting a nominee.
Nice.
I don't know. I think a lot of the stuff that was done post-crisis was done in an attempt to reinvigorate what was already there by ignoring a great deal of what was already there. That always killed me because it's like, why deny? If you want to tell a new story with them and you want to just ignore certain parts of the continuity, but you have a really good story, just do that. That's what Frank Miller did in The Dark Knight Returns. He just ignored the parts of the story that he wasn't have any interest in. It's like, you know, there are only people like us who have the equivalent of degrees in continuity really worry about all the inconsistencies.
I don't think we really worry about it a whole lot. I think you know, I think it's more like when I was 14, I was super worried about continuity, but
sure.
As I grow, I'm more interested in just good stories. I barely keep up, honestly, at this point. I probably get like 7 or 8 monthly books, and like most of them are not. I think I get like 1 DC book, and it's New Gods. So,
Rom V's New Gods, yeah.
I'm going to give it a shot. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm getting it because I like the characters. I don't keep up with like whatever the big thing. If something's good, I pick it up. If not, I don't anymore. I think you're right that time it was grown-up fanboys making decisions, and they were more concerned with that than they should have been. They wanted to reintroduce everything, but they didn't sit down and be like, we're going to reintroduce everything at the same time so it all interlocks. You know, they just kind of did everything on its own, so it never pieced together properly. You know, Hawkman being the big example where you're like, you guys don't know what you're doing. The left hand, normally it's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, but now it's like the left thumb doesn't know what the left pinky's doing. It's that bad.
I have to say that
I do think Hawkworld was good, but all you had to do was say that happened a long time ago, and you could have solved it. They wanted to have everything every which way because they thought things were too confusing, and by being so worried about things being confusing, they made things more confusing. I think they made a mistake because, like I said, in the general public, those 3 are together. Those 3 were the Justice League at the time. You can't buy that. That happened naturally. I don't know why you get rid of that wantonly. DC's kind of historically like this, right? Marvel doesn't get this like until the 90s, but there's a lot editorial fiefdoms.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I'm the Batman guy and I'm the Superman guy, is the Wonder Woman. The Vertigo office, although I don't think they were as prickly as the others because they had a different mission statement, for lack of a better term. But it was all this
make
like
good comics.
Basically, yeah. You know, although I think sometimes they would be like, no, we don't want Death being in Superman 75 because Neil Gaiman won't like it. He would want good comics from him or whatever.
Well, based on what's happened with Neil Gaiman, maybe we should have been ignoring a few of his demands.
Right?
My first introduction to Doom Patrol was the show. I don't think I'd ever read.
Really?
Christ,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm serious. I'm serious.
Damn.
And have you guys had a chance to watch the show?
I love the show. Every episode. Love it. Love it.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have problems
Yeah.
with it.
I understand.
It's a good show, and the reward is there for me.
Yeah.
But I quit during season 1 because it got hard for me because of my mental health issues. I will finish it, so don't spoil it.
Well,
It was beautiful. They were getting everything right, and that's why it was so hard.
and it continues. I remember when I started watching the show, I was like, what in the hell is going on with this team? This storyline is insane.
Yep.
And it continues to get crazier and crazier.
Yeah.
I saw the Doom Patrol here. I may have covered a Doom Patrol few issues on source material at one time, but this is not a book that I've had a chance to go back and read, especially its iteration in the 90s, Doom Patrol. So it was neat to see him show up. And these two fucking issues do not disappoint. Like,
no, they don't.
When you're fucking talking issue 5, what really kind of struck me was like every once in a while throughout this series, you get that Silver Age story feel. Like, this is something that could have been told in the Silver Age, in the vein of something that was told in the Silver Age. The Flash has been cut in half, but he's still alive and he's okay. I could see that in the Silver Age comic. But for some reason with 90s art, with Kitson art, it feels way different because it looks frightening and scary and not right.
Go back sometime and look at the Silver Age Bruno Primani art.
Yeah.
Because that's what this is evoking. And it's Uncanny Valley stuff as well. Like, there's one where his Robot Man is getting put through a press and he's got like a bunch of holes in him and he's all stretchy in one part. And you're that doesn't look right. But I've got the DC archives of it. It's some of the greatest comic books ever written. Honestly, when people talk about 60s X-Men, especially when Stan Lee would rewrite how 60s X-Men went, what they really should be a fan of is 60s Doom Patrol. If everybody in the world who was a Rolling Stones fan was a Velvet Underground fan, and all of the Elvis fans were Johnny Cash fans, and all of the X-Men fans were Doom Patrol fans, the world would be a better place. Not the 60s era of X-Men in particular. Because if you read 60s X-Men and 60s Doom Patrol, the 60s Doom Patrol is so much better. But the X-Men won the war, so you have to dig to find out the truth about what that is.
It's true. It's true.
Issue 6.
You can't compare 90s Doom Patrol to X-Men, though, because Grant Morrison's just like, what the fuck? He is stretching the concepts of what a superhero comic book could be, so it's hard to compare that.
Right. The moment... Shit.
If Grant Morrison announced that he was doing a Sea Devils continuity-free, hard, like they're going to limbo, they're fighting the I am there. I am getting every issue, day and date.
Here comes Prez.
That's what I'm saying. Mark Russell did a hard reboot of Prez. I bought every issue.
I've heard that. Mark Russell.
I am here for it. Listen. These characters, they're not bad, but you take someone with real craft and reinvents them for a modern audience, they hit. Prez landed, man. I read that thing in 2016. I still think about it.
I wanted to talk about the one moment in issue 6. This is probably one of my favorite moments in the book as well. When Aquaman takes the arm of Green Lantern and uses his willpower to make a sword and has that thing. Yeah, Cutlass, and it comes back and cuts the Mr. Brain or whatever his name is, the Brain.
No, the Brain. He's just
the Brain.
Have y'all seen the Teen Titans when Doom Patrol shows up?
No, I haven't.
Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yeah. You're talking about the cartoon? No, I haven't. All right, go ahead.
I just picture the Brain in that voice. He's also on an episode of Brave and the Bold where Batman teamed up with Doom Patrol. He's like, yes, it is me, the Brain. And he's got that auto tune. It's glorious. Where he's like, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. I thought of everything except the fish guy cutting my own head off.
All right. That's all my notes here.
Speaking of thinking of everything, do you know about the supervillain, the Quiz, Jesse?
No.
Do you know about the Quiz, Jesse?
He's a Doom Patrol villain, and he has every superpower that you've never thought of. Yep. So the only way to beat him is you have to sit there and think of superpowers and try and get over on him. So you have to be like super strength, super speed, flight, telepathy, telekinesis, and then he'll trap you in a big bottle.
Such a fucking abstract, like fucking...
You haven't seen Anything.
Yeah, the Doom
Yeah.
Patrol.
No way.
You
Wild,
haven't
brother.
seen anything.
That's
man.
good stuff.
It's
That's
worth
great.
reading. It is mindfuck territory.
I'm all right with that. I'm all
And
right.
like,
with that.
and when Doom Patrol works, whether it's like the blatant mindfuck that Grant Morrison played, or the subtle games that Arnold Drake and Bruno Premiani played in the old one, or the recent Doom Patrol, the Unstoppable Doom Patrol, which I read and really like, it plays these subtle games with what the fringes of acceptability and reality are, and it challenges you to expand your tenets of acceptability, because otherwise aren't you just as bad as the people who try and control order? They're trying to keep everything going, the men from nowhere. You've got to accept things. You have to accept Danny the Street Robot Man.
That's all right, Darry. I'm
have
throwing
to accept the Sea Devil.
I have.
If you haven't
Darry,
by now, you never will.
what are your notes here for 6, 7, and 8?
I'm not 100% sure if this scene is in what we're currently reading or what we were reading, but I want to go back to the scene with the Martian Manhunter where he just tells the team, you know, I wasn't sure if you would trust me because I'm an alien. And it's like, oh, no, you're good. We know you're good. We don't think anything less of you. And he's like, I don't know. You beat those other ones pretty quickly. And it was like, oh, yeah, but they attacked us. And it's like, you keep one of their bodies in a glass case.
Right.
And there's a great silent page where he's staring at them because it stresses how much of an outsider he is. You see this again with the Doom Patrol. This JLA Year One is all about defining all the things the Justice League, which I really like, which I think is new, and I think that they have the ability to do now they didn't have back in the day. Because back in the day it was just Gardner Fox saying, "Oh, hey, we're doing superheroes again. Great! I'm going to do what I did 20 years ago, and I'm going to make sure they all have new villains to fight. And I'm going to have a lot of fun with this." But this concept stuck around. You know, to Dean's point, it had already been in animation and television and all the other stuff at this point. So it's not a support group for people who have dealt with awful things, but it is a place where everyone who wants to figure themselves out can come together and try to figure out, like, okay, what are we when we're all together?
They're
and then
also
one of
not
the
freaks.
but also
It's not too far away.
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
if you're like, you play high school football, you got a varsity quarterback, 5-star blue chip recruit. Okay, he goes out, throws a pass, takes the wrong tackle. Now he's quadriplegic. It's not too far away.
No, I really like Barry Allen is not.
And I'm not calling those people freaks like in real, like, I don't think so. But they would be treated differently from a position of prestige.
Absolutely.
Now there's a lot of people who ostracize you for a disability, and I don't think that's reality that we have to work on. I want to make sure and say that. Like, that kid's a freak once he can't walk. I didn't want to come across that way.
Yeah, I liked how early on Barry Allen is saying to himself, am I even still human? I can do all of these things and I've been changed so much. Where's the line? And it's not until he sees everyone else dealing with the same thoughts that he's like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. And if we all get together and think this way, maybe we can figure out a new way through it. The other thing I really liked about these issues is Black Canary's got a weird relationship with her mom. And I like that, you know, part of this was there in the original Justice League run. They've also kind of took a lot from Silk Spectre and Watchmen. But here it's really like, my mom cheated on someone? That's terrible. And
she really held on to that too. Like, that shapes her in a way.
Justice Society as gods.
Right.
I mean, and some of them are just as fallible as you and me.
But that's what I'm talking about, that moral infallibility and the human infallibility. And in her mind, they're one and the same. That's how these characters used to be presented, right? Especially at their peak. These characters don't really have a lot of moral failings. They're all trying to do their very best. And I really like that they used Black Canary as an example of this because, yeah, she would have grown up hearing all these stories of them fighting the bad guys, saving the world, fighting World War II, and doing all this incredible stuff. And now that she's in that position and she's finding herself to be incredibly capable, she's like, oh, wait, there's just people, mostly guys who are dealing with this. And not only they have feet of clay, but they're trying their best to overcome that. So you can see how she's going to eventually end up with more respect. But this thing that she focuses on with her mom, where it's like, wait, no, absolutely not. I don't want to have to think about moral complexity here. I just want to know we're good, we fight evil. And then watching her struggle through that, her relationship with Barry, getting hit on by everyone else. And still, again, she is easily the least powerful of the five, but she gives. She does not get overwhelmed in any of these situations. And I thought that was great. You know, for a character that had to swap it at the last minute because they didn't have Wonder Woman, I thought her arc over this entire thing was incredibly compelling. And you can see why she'll even be chairperson one day.
I think, you know, let's put the cherry on that Sunday. You're like, she's finding out the world is murky. Apparently the adults in her life as she was growing up weren't as pristine as she thought. The world's more complicated. Well, of course, she would be finding this stuff out. She's 19 years old in this comic book. When you're 19, 20, you're finding out a lot of things about the world that, suck. In a lot of ways. And she's finding those out while also having to scream at Kanjaro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Matthew Price, we have to talk Superman. Superman shows up. What are your thoughts here, Dean?
I think this was handled well because this is the direction they were, this is how it was at the time. It's good to see Superman. It's good the way he said to quit or that he wasn't going to join. It's good that it chapped Hal's ass.
Yeah.
It's good. I think they handled the eventually Superman was going to have to intermingle with them. And it's done in a good way here, but I think the story is a lot better when you can just say Superman was in the Justice League from the start.
Okay.
Did I miss something, or does Snapper Carr not have anything to do in this story?
He snaps.
He snaps, and suddenly he's a tech genius. I get it. Fine.
This is Mark Waid and Brian Augustyn's baby, so he's got to be there. Because this is one of those things that, he was there in the Silver Age. So they bring him forward. And honestly, they do a better job bringing him forward here than when we got silly in the Silver Age where they made him turn on the JLA, work with the Joker and stuff. Listen, if he's just like a hardcore tech geek kid, kind of like Ted Kord, who we've also kind of glossed over, who appeared.
We had to make room for Dan Garrett, okay?
And the Cedar.
Had to make room for him. God forbid we don't see public domain, early Blue Beetle.
You really don't like Dan Garrett.
I hate this thing where we have dozens of characters, and I'm Mark Waid. I'm a fan of all these Golden Age characters. I suddenly get to play with the Freedom Fighters and all these other characters, so I have to squish them in. I'm not giving anyone any context for them. Do you know who did this really well? James Robinson and his Starman run and the Golden Age did something very similar, where he used dozens of characters I have never heard of. But when they were important, he made a point of having them do something crucial to the story and have someone else acknowledge it. I don't need to know who Johnny Quick is. All I need to know is that he's got a daughter he's very close with. When she gets hurt fighting Super Hitler, whatever happens in that story, that's
they do speed math.
Exactly. They do speed math, things like that, where it's like, if Dan Garrett is going to be in this story, could we at least have a reason why? Was he maybe not good enough to be in the Justice Society? I don't know. He has 6 different careers in the Golden Age. There are real world reasons as to why this character is very, very important. He's one of the earliest characters. He predates most of the DC characters.
He got a radio show.
He had a radio show. You could have done a lot of stuff with him. This is one of the first, if not the first, before Wesley Dodds in this new continuity, a man dressed up like a beetle, and he was the very first superhero. He found a magic bug, and he's still around today, and he's going to help us defeat the invaders from Apalax. There could have been something with that. Tell us why we care about him first.
Well, I think they do a good job of doing that with the Blackhawks.
Oh, I agree 100%.
Where you see the Blackhawks arc where it's like, hey, we're cool guys. And like, hey, you're not that cool anymore. Well, maybe we got to do something to be cool. Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. It's not that cool. That was a
great scene.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's this period where they decide to update the Blackhawks in the Silver Age, and Batman is talking to the president, and he literally goes, they're past news. Let's face it. They just don't swing. They change from just cool motherfuckers with cool motherfucking planes in cool jackets with cool motherfucking scarves and cool motherfucking hats, blowing the shit out of dumb fucking Nazis, fighting the war wheel, and then later as, because their book lasts into the 60s, from the 40s. Yeah. So in the 50s, they're fighting some neo-Nazis and that kind of thing, but they fight a bunch of alien guys. So they could have just done this forever. I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but Jesse, you've got sons, right? You got a son, right?
Yeah, yep.
Some other kids around.
Oh yeah.
The kids never stopped liking jets. You know what I mean? I still like jets now. If I see a jet, I stop for look at that jet. Then I'm like, that jet just cost me $4 million to take off. And I get upset. But at first it's like, cool, that's a cool jet.
Right.
So, you didn't have to, it was weird to update them, but it was nice to be referenced here, and it was a cool arc, and I think it accomplished what you were looking for with some other characters, Darry, where 100%. You're like, here's why I care, here's what they did, and here's how it wound up.
Yeah. The Blackhawks are a great example because, to your point, they've got a multitude of adventures, but they're also they're a great concept. To your point, it's like everyone the Nazi took over, they've got their own independent mercenary Air Force. They beat the hell out of the Axis Air Force, and then they kept going. They were like, there's never going to be a shortage of fascists, and we're going to keep blowing them out of the sky.
Right.
And, oh, look, now we're dealing with dinosaurs. Now we're dealing with flying saucers. Like, they just kept going, you know? And you could bring them back today. DC's tried a bunch of times. There's even a Black Hawk in Kingdom Come in a very famous scene. It's an evergreen idea.
Brought Lady Blackhawk into the Birds of Prey. Howard Chaykin Blackhawk is very critically acclaimed. Steven Spielberg almost made a movie. There's a paperback for the Blackhawk in the early 80s. But what actually killed the Blackhawks is the sales were down. They tried to update them. Yeah. And that made sales go down even further. What you have to do is be cool, give us reasons to care. But we'll get back to but I thought that was a really cool meta way to address a real life thing that happened, where they changed the Blackhawks and then they changed back. And again, we already have 45,000 superheroes from the Metal Men to Animal Man, but we only have one of a bad motherfucking ass fighter stealth bomber squadron with super lasers from World War II that got them hats and jackets and scarves.
You know, this is another thing why I like
Rocketeer. They look like cool ass guys.
All right.
I think the only other thing I wanted to point out was what a great moment when it appears to us that Green Arrow and Green Lantern meet for the first time, where he's like, you know, Hal Jordan's being a jerk. He's like, you got your meteor arrow? He's like, let's see if my jerk arrow works. And shoots the boomerang. It's working just fine. How about that? Because fuck you, Hal Jordan.
That is something that I really liked about this series, the use of Green Arrow. In real life, Green Arrow was the first person to join after the original 7. He was a big deal. This story makes it seem like this is a guy with no superpowers, no questions asked, but he's constantly in on the missions. It's kind of like in the show Smallville, when you can't use Batman, he's too expensive for your property. You got to find a way to fill that gap. I really like the idea of Green Arrow being the unpowered guy who could show up, help, and prove to be useful in a lot of ways.
Act like Arrow Batman Light from the Arrowverse.
He smiles. He's much
like
more...
this guy's like, they're like, oh, are you joining the Justice League? He's like, I wouldn't slum with these guys. I mean, that's what you want from Green Arrow.
Yeah, exactly.
I am here from my arrow cave to brood. I don't need that.
I really like that at the very end they show that he is the mysterious benefactor, and I thought that was...
and they make you think it's Bruce Wayne the whole time. They're setting you up to think it's Bruce Wayne, but it's actually Rich Ollie Queen.
Yeah, and I like that. I thought that was a good retcon. Again, my headcanon, I don't think this is anywhere, but you know, this was not the case pre-Crisis in Earth 1. No one talked about money back then, but I do like the idea that post-Crisis, the reason he agrees to fund this thing is basically, well, Black Canary's on the team now, right? We know they're eventually going to end up together, and it's kind of like, I was going to fund 4 dudes, but the one in fishnets, yeah, absolutely. I got
no problem.
$6 billion I'm not using. Build a fancy computer inside of a mountain. Sure, why not?
The part in the last issue where Speedy's like, you're right, GA, she is hot. Like they're both saying the same thing.
Oh my God, the things they get away with saying to her in this book, it's like, this was only 25 years ago. This is rough. Like,
yeah. Well, but 25 years ago, it would have been 15 years before that.
Oh, true. That's, I keep forgetting that. Yeah.
So right. Like maybe, I mean, I do think it was.
This comic is set during like 88, 90. You're right.
But speaking of Green Arrow and Speedy, they're great. And my favorite moment is on the Justice League Unlimited cartoon where Speedy shows up. They're fighting it's Patriot Act. They show up and they're fighting the unstoppable general. And he's like, guess who's here ready in for it now? Because we got the Crimson Avenger and my ex-sidekick Speedy. Partner, Green Arrow, we got to do this now? We got to do this now?
I remember watching that episode with a group of people and being so excited, and everyone's like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I'm like, that's the 7 Soldiers of Victor. And I have never gotten more like stares of just like, what are you talking about? And I had to explain, like, these are the 7 characters DC didn't own until they did. Most of them don't have superpowers, but now they're fighting the Shaggy Man because we won. We won the culture war. Congrats, guys. I love that episode so much. With Nathan Fillion voicing the vigilante of all people.
Oh, wow.
I love it so much.
Injustice. Civilians clear.
Civilians are clear. Civilians are clear. There's only one person here with superpowers, dude, and it ain't us. It's you. It's you crazy SOB.
Justice League issue number 9, a mysterious alien inhabiting the body of Simon Carr schemes to use Earth as a proving ground for their empire's successors. Haunted by dreams of alien possession and frustrated by the Justice League's interference, Simon's growing madness sets a foreboding tone. Meanwhile, the League grapples with internal discord as Paranoia rises over Martian Manhunter's prior surveillance of his teammates, splitting up to address environmental crises caused by the rogue organization Locus. The team faces mounting challenges. Flash and Black Canary combat a machine melting the polar ice caps, and Aquaman and Green Lantern confront a volcanic threat in the Mariana Trench. Both missions succeed, but not without highlighting the team's fraying trust and underlying tension. Reuniting in California's Redwood Forest, the League encounters another Locus device, apparently guarded by Martian Manhunter, seemingly confirming their worst fears of betrayal.
No.
Despite his apparent hostility, John's actions reveal he was working to disarm the device. A misunderstanding leads to a fiery confrontation, culminating in the device's destruction. It ends up activating, throws methane gas into the atmosphere, and sets the Redwood Forest ablaze. The League narrowly survives, but the events deepen their mistrust, casting doubt on their ability to function as a cohesive team. As the stakes grow, so does the tension, leaving the League fractured as they face an increasingly complex and dangerous enemy. In Justice League issue number 10, the team battles the fires caused by Locus's terraforming machine, with Martian Manhunter struggling to assist despite his vulnerability to fire. The League's tensions escalate as suspicions about John's loyalty persist, but during the chaos, Locus soldiers arrive, sparking a fierce battle. Coordinated efforts by Black Canary, Aquaman, Green Lantern, and Flash allow Martian Manhunter to destroy the Locus device, though the resulting explosion leaves him unconscious. When the Locus agents retreat through a portal, Flash leads the team in pursuit. And at Locus headquarters, the Justice League faces advanced genetically engineered foes, while the Locus leader triggers a plan to merge Earth's land masses, risking humanity's destruction. Flash steps into a leadership role.
This is a big plan.
Flash steps into a leadership role, and the team unites to stop the catastrophic machine. With Jordan's Green Lantern construct stabilizing the Earth, the League successfully thwarts Locus's apocalyptic scheme. The victory, however, is bittersweet. Martian Manhunter probes the minds of the defeated Locus soldiers, but discovers they are programmed with a fatal failsafe, leaving the team without answers as the soldiers die en masse. Shaken by the experience, Martian Manhunter reveals his struggle with isolation and his initial mistrust of humanity, opening up to the team for the first time. Inspired by Flash unmasking himself as Barry Allen, the League members follow suit, strengthening their bond. And the issue ends on a foreboding note as Snapper Carr warns that his Uncle Simon is behind the Locus plot and not working alone. Before the League can process this revelation, a fleet of alien ships arrive, signaling an imminent invasion and setting the stage for their next challenge. In issue 11, the Justice League faces the devastating invasion of the Appalachians, systematically dismantle Earth's defenses. Superman, Earth's greatest hero, is captured and subdued, symbolizing the overwhelming strength of the invaders. Across the globe, other heroes, including the Atom and the Metal Men, fall victim to the aliens' ruthless tactics. The League, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Black Canary, Flash, and Martian Manhunter, arrives in a ravaged metropolis only to be overpowered and forced to retreat. The team learns that Snapper Carr's uncle, Simon Carr, has unknowingly aided the invaders by leaking critical information about Earth's heroes, allowing the Appalachians to exploit their vulnerabilities. Way to go, Martian Manhunter. The League's desperation grows as they discover...
Don't you ever write anything down again.
The League's desperation grows...
He's got a super brain. He didn't need to write none of that down.
Super brain.
Right. The League's desperation grows as they discover that the invaders have gained access to Martian Manhunter's private files on the heroes, further endangering their chances. Determined to turn the tide, the League devises a daring plan to infiltrate a holding facility on Black Hawk Island, where the Appalachians are imprisoning captured heroes. Martian Manhunter disguises himself as an Appalachian to gain access, allowing the League to stage a surprise attack from within. Once inside, they free Superman, Batman, and numerous other heroes, rallying them for a decisive counteroffensive. United in purpose, the combined forces of Earth's greatest heroes coordinate an all-out assault, gaining the upper hand against the invaders. Superman's leadership and strength inspire hope, and with other powerful heroes like Dr. Fate and Starman turn the tide of battle. The issue ends with a powerful image of the League and their allies standing together, resolved to reclaim their planet. The stage is set for a climactic confrontation in the next chapter of the epic struggle for Earth's survival. Issue 12. You guys ready? Here we go.
Do it.
The Justice League leads Earth's heroes in a massive coordinated effort to repel the alien invasion. The aliens have launched a global assault, transforming environments, specifically, I think it was the Daily Planet, and the crystalline or glass structures. There's aliens down in the sea, if I remember correctly. That's where Aquaman runs into. They're planning on poisoning the sea with mercury. Heroes from all over the world join the battle, with the League at the forefront. Green Lantern, Flash, Black Canary, and Martian Manhunter use their unique abilities to protect civilians and dismantle the alien threat. Meanwhile, Aquaman and the Sea Devils...
Aquaman and the Sea Devils!
Girl, there they are.
Fight an underwater battle against the mercury-based invaders, poisoning the oceans. Despite being outnumbered, the heroes cleverly use strategy, such as trapping the invaders. As the battle intensifies, the League learns the aliens have uncovered their secret identities in the skies. Martian Manhunter and allies battle Appalachian forces capable of turning humans into mind-controlled avian warriors. At Stonehenge, the alien leaders arrogantly plan the extermination of all life on Earth, believing humanity to be insignificant. However, Vandal Savage launches a surprise counterattack, using the aliens' own mind-wiping technology against them. The Justice League continued the battle. Flash and Superman joined forces in St. Louis to face off against diamond-based aliens, some of the toughest enemies. Superman uses his strength to remove the aliens from the battlefield, while the Atom shrinks down to subatomic size, infiltrating one of the crystalline creatures. Using his intellect and precise powers, Atom fractures the alien from within, but the process takes a toll on him. The Flash retrieves the injured Atom, realizing how dangerous this fight has become. Elsewhere, global heroes are pushed to their limits. Dr. Mist and the Global Guardians.
Is Dr. Mist a pre-existing character, or never heard of him?
Yeah, he's the guy who's in charge of the Global Guardians. He's also in Primal Force. He's a magic.
Okay, thank you.
They suffer devastating injuries. The Earth's mystics, like Zatanna, struggle to keep up with their magical defenses. Recognizing the need for greater power, the Spectre reluctantly allies with, what was his name?
Wotan.
To try and defeat the alien threat. Meanwhile, interpersonal tensions among the League's members rise, particularly between Black Canary and the Flash. Canary reflects on her choices and encounters Green Arrow, who attempts to charm her despite the chaos. The story shifts to Snapper Carr and the League's support team monitoring the situation. They're faced with grim news. The aliens are relentless, and the heroes are exhausted. Simon finds Snapper and tells him that Vandal Savage may be planning to attack the JLA and the other heroes, as well as the Appalachians. Dr. Fate strains to maintain magical barriers against the relentless alien hordes, with Black Canary and others reflecting on the stakes and their loved ones' safety. As the superheroes regroup, Snapper Carr reveals that Vandal Savage has seized a deadly device capable of killing the aliens, but could also be turned against Earth's defenders. Tensions escalate as the Justice League plans their next move, but Savage himself appears, boasting his intent to destroy both his enemies and the alien invaders. However, his plans are thwarted rather quickly when Green Lantern and Flash take him down, only to discover that Clayface was masquerading as Savage, but being mind-controlled by Savage, adding a new layer of complexity to this crisis. Meanwhile, the battle intensifies as mystical reinforcements led by the Spectre and other sorcerers amplify the fight against the alien menace. The team debates whether to use the deadly weapon, which represents both a moral dilemma and a tactical advantage. Martian Manhunter, despite immense pain, sacrifices his mind to rewire the device to target only the invaders with a non-lethal psychic blast. With teamwork and unity, the heroes lend their minds to take some of the strain from Martian Manhunter. Their plan works, enabling the other superheroes to capture the Appalachians, and as the magical heroes conjure a portal to the Appalachian homeworld, the JLA gather the alien invaders and send them packing. In the aftermath, the Justice League reflects on their hard-won victory and the sacrifices made. The story concludes with a hopeful note as the League contemplates expanding their ranks and uncovering the mystery of their benefactor, who the reader learns to be Oliver Queen, a.k.a. Green Arrow. The issue closes with a reminder of the League's enduring legacy as Clark Kent documents their triumph for the world to see. That might have actually happened before the reveal, but either way, there you go. I'm done reading now. Let's get to discuss it. Darry, you're first, man. We finished it out. Give us any thoughts on these final 4 issues and any final thoughts as well.
So had a little confusion in trying to figure out what the alien invaders actually want. They came to Earth because they wanted to see if Earth would be easy to take over, even though we're all lower life forms. They keep making fun of us because we're all made out of carbon or whatever. And then the Justice League sends them packing. So then they're like, okay, we're going to figure out a new strategy, and now we're just going to send everyone. So is it like, if we didn't fight them, if we had just let them do whatever, would they just be like, oh, okay, this planet's pretty cool, we'll take it over one day? But because we had the audacity to beat them, they're like, okay, send the rest. I don't understand the plan of this.
I thought there's a moment where Simon, I think at the beginning of that one, oh my goodness, at the beginning of the issue, let me find it here real quick, because he kind of explains
the nightmare.
Yeah, he explains like they're being sent there to show their, like they're the force that's going.
Oh, yeah. And then whoever wins, whoever gets the most kills gets to be emperor. Right. Okay. There you go. Yeah. Right.
Since he was stranded there and this guy was upset because he got his ass handed to him, he's like, okay, you know what? Let's just bring everybody to Earth and we'll go.
Right. They came here because whoever was going to win would have went home as the conquering hero. They would have been able to rule and do whatever, but they all got defeated. So they're like, this place embarrassed all of us. We're going to wipe it off the map. I love how much I care about the Martian Manhunter arc. The idea of the Justice League helping him with his burden and everyone trusting each other immediately, grabbing him and being like, you're the only one who can do this, but we're all going to help you. Really, really like that. It reminded me of the Umbrella Academy show, but at the end of the first season, and again, I guess technically spoilers, but I don't think anyone actually watches the show. The characters overcome the threat by finally doing something together. The entire season they haven't been able to work together, and they finally work together and they're able to overcome. It's the same thing here. For 11 issues, we've watched these characters become the world's greatest superheroes. In this fact, the first thing they do as a group is help each other defeat the threat. The invaders were all fighting against each other to see who's the strongest. The Justice League defeats them by realizing that we're stronger together. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's a good one, and it's a good one for a reason, and I think it really lands here. So I really appreciated seeing that as the climax of the battle.
All right. Any other notes or anything like that?
I don't like Snapper Carr. At least across the street, Rick Jones had the audacity to almost get killed by a nuclear explosion before he was saved and joined the Avengers for some reason. But I the one time I read a Snapper Carr story I really liked was Tom Peyer wrote him into Our Man from around this period of time. And that was a pretty cool story. But aside from that, it's always like, why do you guys have a mascot that's this random kid? Why?
Yep.
I guess he's supposed to be the audience POV character, maybe? I don't know. I never understood it.
I mean, of these 4 issues, for me, that 12th issue is amazing. I think it brings so much together. And granted, it's everybody's kind of, there's a panel, there's this, and there's that.
It's also a little like a Royal Rumble. You know, like when we talked about Panic in the Sky, everybody got their moment to be cool. We had seen all of them get the shit kicked out of them, so now it was their time to shine.
Yeah, last issue dropped October 14th, 1998. You guys have schooled me a lot on DC, especially Golden Age and Silver Age DC. I know the hits. I know all the hits. So when you bring all these people together that I've seen before, I may not know exactly everything they do. It's still done well. They have this massive threat that they have to try and overcome. All the villains have, all the knowledge on these superheroes. So it makes sense. So I enjoyed myself there. And as far as the 12th issue, I think it's a masterclass in watching everything unfold in a big battle that we needed to kind of wrap things up. So that's kind of all I have right now. Dean?
It's really funny. I feel like the last part just goes by really quick because we're all just waiting to get to that big moment at the end in issue 12 when the heroes finally have their moment. I also like how they evolve as a team and as individuals, their relationships evolve. But notice how their relationship as a team evolves with the DC universe as things go forward. All of a sudden, they're the ones in charge. They're the vanguard. They're leading. They're the spearhead, leading the way. People like Superman's listening to them, and they're having to deal with that because their success has made them the creme de la creme of superheroism. So it was fun to watch that culminate. I like, I mentioned the Green Arrow moment earlier. I like seeing all these guys have their little moment. I think the only real problem, and this isn't even a problem because you knew they were going to win the whole time, but the last issue winds up, you're like, okay, it's funny. It's well done. And I feel like it winds up, you're like, okay, how does it happen? How does it happen? Come on. And I feel like I tried to rush it more than it was necessarily rushed. I was like, come on, let's get to now this. I also like how Vandal Savage is playing subtlety and duality, where it's like, I got a way to destroy them both. It was never going to kill the Justice League or these heroes, but it would have killed the public's trust in them. It would have destroyed their integrity. It would have destroyed who they were at their core. It would have caused that atmosphere of paranoia that he had utilized so well to destroy the JSA to begin with. So I enjoy that. I really like that. The whole moment where like the whole DC universe is basically channeling their will into Jean so he can subdue the Appalachians without killing them. It ends with a nice bang. And honestly, I read the foreword in the one I got. They're like, I wish we could have done year 2. We had ideas, Metamorpho, Hawkman, Green Arrow, more Sea Devils.
Would have been a great follow-up story. I kept looking for other stories that Applex featured in, and it really doesn't, unless you're trying to retell the origin story. It would have been great if, it skipped ahead to the time of the Legion or even past them, and Applex tries to invade us again. It's like, are all the Justice League members dead? Okay, well, we're still alive because we're immortal, inanimate creatures, and only Vandal Savage remains. He's like, I knew you guys were coming back. I'm ready for you. And there's like 5 million of them in a gorgeous fleet of, rhinestone-covered meteorites or however they traverse the stars. And Vandal Savage is just standing here, like on the tallest mountain being like, nope, I was ready for you. You don't need superheroes. And then he just presses a button and they all go down.
They go away.
I thought that would have been a great coda of him being like, nope, this planet's, I'm the only person alive here, but it is still mine. You cannot have it. It's principle of the thing.
The follow-up to this is, I believe, the Brave and the Bold, Green Lantern and Flash.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Fast for Friends.
Yep.
No, I don't know that. I think it's just Brave and the Bold. It's really good too. We'll have to do it sometime. But it's like 6 double-sized issues. Like it's nice. But you get more Green Arrow.
Green Arrow.
Green Arrow's my favorite DC character, so it's always good.
I thought the Penguin was your favorite DC character.
My favorite DC villain.
Yep, sorry.
I missed talking about the last synopsis. I missed talking about my moment that I really liked where Green Lantern and Aquaman is talking to Green Lantern, and Green Lantern assumes he's the leader.
Yeah.
And Aquaman starts laughing his ass off, and he's like, well, no, everybody knows it's the Flash. What are you talking about? I really like that. And, you watch this team grow. You watch them deal with each other's personalities and end up as a cohesive unit at the end. Doesn't matter who the leader is, they're a team. And that's what matters the most. This was a great read. I would have loved to have read it in 98. It would have felt like, yeah, I'm starting on the ground floor for a lot of stuff, or at least getting an idea of how these characters came together. But yeah, I've enjoyed it for sure.
It's very much worth the read. Anybody who's a fan of the Justice League or DC Universe in general is going to like it. Mark Waid and Brian Augustyn are at their best. Barry Kitson's at his best. The only thing I would tell you, it's long. It's a nice, hefty book, but you can get the trade paperback right now for like $30, and I think it's worth $30. I can't give it a higher recommendation than that.
Yeah, it's a good bit of dialogue in this. And yeah, just like you said, it's 12 issues, two big ones on each end, but there is definitely a lot of dialogue. So prepare to sit down and read, but it's not anything that will take you out completely. Just check it after this. As far as Mark Waid goes, I just wanted to look. So this wraps up October of 1998. He's still doing Captain America, and he does Captain America up until I think like issue 24, 23. He then gets into what looks like he is on the Flash. He did Flash 143. So yeah, you're right. He was doing Flash during this whole time. And then yeah, we've got the Kingdom. Kingdom happens at the end of 98. So
No.
No.
We're gonna do.
Have you ever read The Kingdom?
Great.
I have not.
Okay.
It's an incredible read that Darry really likes.
What's the problem?
The Kingdom is a follow-up to Kingdom Come, except Mark Waid does it on his own without Alex Ross, and it's rough. It's rough.
The writing is not on par, or is it the art? You got
that.
It doesn't have the grandeur.
Okay.
Yeah, if Kingdom Come, storyline-wise, is a response to the grim and gritty, the image of superhero comics in the early 90s. It's a response to that. The Kingdom is like, okay, now I want to bring back everything I loved from the pre-crisis era. It really doubles down on this. And again, you see a little bit of it here in JLA Year One, but this idea that, it's all canon. You just have to look at it the right way. The Kingdom introduces hypertime.
Hypertime is where this show,
which Waid cobbled together with Grant Morris. Actually, a concept that I like now as an adult, but at the time I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, it turned out it was just going to be what every adult fan would embrace because, because at the end of the day, it's like when Alan Moore started Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. It's like an imaginary story. After all, aren't they all? Does it matter? We're talking about fake drawings and people shooting fake rays at one another.
It's true.
If you like it, it counts somewhere for you. If you don't, it doesn't have to. You can like it, and it can also not count. The most liberating thing was being in my 20s and figuring out that my headcanon was the only thing that mattered. That I don't have to argue with anybody about anything that counts or doesn't count, or how it works in my head is perfectly fine. And if they're like, oh, well, actually, they did this with the Punisher, I'm like, that's fine. I don't count that. You're talking about corporate-owned characters are going to morph based on the times and the creators and what's ever inspired those times and creators. Just come up with your vision and go with it. Nobody, it's not a big deal. And not be mad when they change for the times that exist because you're past those times.
Right.
I'm sorry that they try and make comic books for 15-year-olds, but that's what they do.
And the other thing I'll say is, Dina already mentioned how great Barry Kitson was, but this thing looks beautiful. I mean, really, it's at the time it had a good feeling. The aesthetic is like a merger of the classic, very clean line art of Silver Age DC stories, but it's got a modern storytelling sensibility.
That's what I was going to say. If the Silver Age happened in the 90s, it would have looked like this.
Yeah. Kitson does an amazing job at using the timeless looks of these characters. The conversations seem real. Everyone's got their own unique facial structure. Every single character that DC owned at the time is great because he makes them look iconic. Every cover looks like a poster I would have liked to have had in my room. Yeah, he uses splash pages really well. The story is great, but Kitson really does a fantastic job on this book.
You said he got to draw just about everybody in the DC universe. Is there somebody you didn't see that you would have liked to?
Well, my answer is kind of obvious, but there were almost none of the Earth-esque characters in this book. I know there was no room for them, but I would have loved to have seen, and I'm sure this is Jerry Ordway's fault, but the Marvel family, I would have appreciated having them pop up. So.
Yeah.
What about you, Jess?
My goodness. This right here, who did he not draw in this 12th issue? Like almost
Swamp Thing?
Okay.
I wish Swamp Thing would have been there. But this isn't a criticism. It's just like, hey, this was good. I wish another one of my favorites could have been there.
Right. I know all the hits. And issue 12 gave me all the hits.
Well, I mean, you got the Human Bomb as well.
The Human Bomb.
Devils.
Oh, wow. That one splash page with the Blackhawks, Black Canary holding the flag up.
Mm-hmm.
Starman flying.
Gonna tell kids that was Iwo Jima.
That's good stuff. All right, guys, we did it. 2.5 hours. We talked about JLA. It's a return to form. JLA Year 1, 2025.
Honestly, before we wrap it up, it's one of the best spinoffs ever because this gets made because JLA is a hit.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
You know what? And this is a way to spin it off without having to
tie in anything, right?
So like, way to go. Smart move to pitch this at the right time by the creators involved, because a lot of times spinoffs can water things down. But if I had read this at the time, it would have just made me want to read the JLA more.
Also,
Mark Waid how old is Mark Waid now? Like he's
232.
I'll just go to the internet. I'm done asking you guys.
I'm guessing 60.
No, I think I actually know the answer to this. I think he just turned 60.
I figured he was pushing the 30s in the 90s.
Check the math.
No.
Mark Waid is 62 years old.
All right, hey, split the difference. Look
He's
at us.
turning 63 this year.
Look at us, please.
Great job, Mark. Great job, Brian. R.I.P. Great job, Barry. Love you, Punisher, too. So, yeah, this is a must-read. If you're a fan of 90s comics, you've got to read this.
Love it. All right, we're out of here. So Dean Compton, I want you to tell everybody about the Unspoken Decade. It's been a while since we've done plugs, so I'm curious, has anything changed?
We're just on Blue Sky more. Having a good time over there. The page is growing. Got almost 1,000 followers. We're up to 27,000 followers on the Facebook page. So join us for all that. I mean, we posting stuff just about every day. It's incredibly exciting if you're into comic books in general, 90s comic books in particular. If you're not into them, you're probably not going to hear this, so fuck you anyway. I'm just kidding. You're great. You're great.
Somebody's mom is listening to this podcast in the car with her son right now.
Could you imagine if someone who's never in any of this starts listening to this thinking like, oh, I had a great time in the 90s. And then they're like halfway through and they're like, what's a Martian Manhunter? What is this?
As for myself, I will go ahead and plug some recent episodes that I was on. So recently I got to talk Hell of a Boss. That's right. Hell of a Boss on TV Party Tonight. It was the second part of the second season. So it's a YouTube short done by Vivzy Pop, and I'm sure there's probably maybe 3 people who listen to this podcast that might know what exactly that is. But prior to that, on the Source Material Comics podcast, Mark Radlich and myself are making our way through the City of Bane. And we discussed the second part of our coverage this past Monday on the City of Bane. And on the 30th of December was our last Unspoken Issues podcast, where all 3 of us discussed Big Bang Comics.
Good times, great oldies.
That's right. It's a lot of fun. And I think that's all I got right now. Listen, folks, if you get a chance, go to the Source Material Comics podcast YouTube page. Should be able to find all sorts all of our stuff has been uploaded to that now. So you can check out any episode, at least from the last 2 or 3 years. Should be able to find that pretty easily. And ladies and gentlemen, that's Darry. There's Dean. I'm Jesse. Have a good one. Bye-bye.